Hello, I'm Paul Laney, the retired sheriff in Cass County, North Dakota, and the current vice president of national sales here at Turnkey Corrections.
And I'm Lauren Matthews, and I'm the current social media and content specialist here at Turnkey.
And you are listening to JailTalk.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to do part 2 with Jonathan Thompson here. And if you haven't seen part 1, definitely go back and watch it. There's a lot of really great content in part 1. And to make sure you catch all of our future content, make sure you subscribe and like our channel.
Right below.
Well, welcome back, Jonathan. It's great to have you back. Thanks for joining us again.
I'm really honored to be here, and it's just a great place to be. To be sitting next to this guy is great. It's awesome.
Well, I think we kind of feel the same way, and yes, definitely welcome back for part 2. There's so much to talk about in the sheriff's world right now, and I think we could go on for hours, and it's so hard to cover it in 30-minute increments. But the information that you brought, and the information that our sheriffs and our jail administrators, our listeners get out there is our goal, and something they can take back into their offices and make things better. And with that, I want to kind of dive right into something. Last episode, I mean, these are big words. When the office of sheriff is under attack,
right? And
any of us who have walked in those shoes, and any of us have worn that badge, know exactly what you mean. And it's not getting better; it's getting worse. What's your advice to our nation's sheriffs, to our nation's sheriff's offices, on what they can do to strengthen the office of sheriff?
That's a great question, Paul. I think you can look at Seattle's decision to do away with the office of sheriff, and ultimately it comes down to involvement by sheriffs, by those in law enforcement, those that work with sheriffs, and the community, engaging and educating that community about what the risks are, what the threats are. Engaging with your state association, engaging with national association. Go to sheriffs.org, and we'll give you a multitude of ways to do that and learn where is the office of sheriff under threat and risk. It's not just about eliminating the office of sheriff in many cases as well. Sometimes it's about scaling back their responsibilities. In some cases, it's about budgets. Reducing budgets. And when we say that we have to protect the office of sheriff, it's not just a concept that we're protecting. It's a form of law enforcement that goes to the core of what this country was founded on, right? Which was individual responsibility, the rule of law, et cetera, et cetera. And that you were elected by the people that chose you. And they said, you are our last line. And it's a huge responsibility, but it's also a very large risk. And when I talk to chiefs quite frequently, and I talk to sheriffs obviously very frequently, and I think what we find it's difficult to do often is to celebrate what we do. Right? Some people call it bragging. Some people call it self-aggrandizement. And I think very often when the people that are watching this, whether you're a corrections officer, whether you're a patrol sergeant, it's having that conversation with the people that are close to you and talking to them about, do you know who I work for and why I work for him? I work for him because of this, or I work for her because of this. And here's what her philosophy is on representing you in the community. That's the way to blanch this. And I think also, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. And I think that there's this myth that somehow a county commissioner who's elected has more experience in law enforcement decision making than somebody that spent 20 years as a patrolman, or somebody that spent 30 years as an officer coming up through the ranks to become a chief or a sheriff. They don't. Let's just be realistic. What they have is judgment authority, but they don't have or decision authority. That doesn't mean they always have the judgment authority. Big difference there.
Huge difference there. And some of the impacts of that non-educated decision-making has impact through law enforcement and can change the game, and not always in a very good way.
And I'm not picking on Congress much, but you don't have to look very far past January 6th, right? The chief, in that case, was asking 3 days beforehand of his civilian advisors, I need warning orders to go out to the National Guard. I may need EMAC alerts. That's somebody who is a real serious dude. This guy has an amazing background. He's asking for help, and he's getting a response, no, I don't think so. And so he was just cut off at the knees, right? And he's out of his job. Go figure. He didn't make the decision. I don't know how he got blamed, but he did. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's the way to get involved.
Well, from a different perspective, as an American citizen who I've never been in law enforcement, it's kind of a totally different world for me from that experience and that perspective. So as just kind of a quote unquote regular citizen who lives in Minnesota, what do I have to be worried about?
I guess what you probably need to be most worried about is that the Packers dominate you next year.
Oh,
ouch!
He went there.
He did.
He went there.
I set him up for that one.
Yeah.
Sorry, Vikings fans.
Yes, that one went out of the park. That's all right. You're between us.
That's right.
That's right.
You're taking back my mug.
Yeah, give that
back. I'm probably going to get hate mail from this.
I mean,
or love mail. I don't know.
You do have to go into Minnesota to fly home.
Yeah, I know. That's right.
We do have a network.
Seriously. Oh boy, that's a tough question. I think,
because I think as a citizen, and if I understand that question, you're sitting at home watching Minneapolis burn. You're sitting around watching Seattle burn, Portland burn. You're watching all this stuff happen. You see people turning against law enforcement, and as a citizen who's never been in the world we come from, you're saying, "What do I do?" And how does that is that kind of how I understand your question?
Yeah. I mean, I think number one, it's educating yourself on the facts. There are what's the old adage? There are facts, and then there's damn lies, or whatever I can never remember that quote. There are statistics and lies. The point I'm making, though, is understanding that there are two sides to every story. You can look at the 1-minute video of any incident and pass judgment. Can you tell me what happened 2 minutes prior? Can you tell me what happened 5 minutes prior? Can you tell me how did it end, right? And what was the outcome after the ending? But looking at a 2-minute video and passing judgment isn't always the smartest thing to do, right? So you have to be somewhat of a judge and jury at the same time. Second thing is getting involved. As I said, you've got to take the time to, most people don't have an interaction with law enforcement, believe it or not. And, what I always ask is, how's your day? How are you doing? How'd you do today? That means I want to know what's going on with you. I didn't just say it for the fun of it. Ask those questions when you see a cop or you see a deputy, and just say, how's your day? And I think I think some of the people watching will be surprised if they got, how's your day? They're like, why are you asking? Because you care. You want to know what is it that how are you making it through the day? Because you got a tough job, and I know you have a tough job. I think community involvement is also essential. I think that doesn't mean go out and volunteer 20 hours a week. It may mean, hey, maybe one day a week one day every month I might spend at a homeless shelter, and understanding the challenges and the risks that they face. The other thing to be worried about, I think, is that there is an awful lot of people out there that want not to be held accountable for anything. That has to change. We can't be a society. We can't be a nation without accountability. And I think anybody that would tell you otherwise is either sorely mistaken or a member of a movement that is seeking to undermine this country. The last thing I would tell you to be worried about is that I think we have some tough times ahead of us. We talked about COVID earlier. I don't know where it's going to go, but I still think that you need to be prepared. And I know people are watching this and they may say, well, geez, you guys aren't wearing a mask. Well, for the record, I've been vaccinated. I know you got sick. I know Paul got sick. And so we talked about being prepared. I'm asking you to be prepared. Talk to your friends and family and just say, how how are you guys feeling about the future? I think we're such a resilient country, but I think we have to take a step back. We have to say, what are we going to be? Are we going to be, as we talked about earlier, are we going to be a nation of takers, or are we going to be a nation of caring and giving? And you can only take for so long until nobody has anything. At that point, you're not a country. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't mean to depress you. I hope that didn't depress you.
That's good advice for everyone.
But your generation is coming into the leadership positions. Your generation is the future. And I think that's a very valued question. As we start moving closer to the I've retired once already. You've been, in a number of careers, and now you're leading the largest sheriff's organization in the world. And as we get up in our years and start handing off the torch, those are valid questions, because your generation is going to have to solve a lot of what's happening in society and pick that route that we're going to do that. And that's a huge load.
I would also tell you, I think there are injustices in the world. I don't think anybody can dissuade me from that. There are, and where there is injustice, true injustice, you need to help right that injustice. And I don't know how you do that. That's maybe that's that get involved point. Because you work with law enforcement, it's always, I think it's a fair question to always ask them, how are you doing? What can we do to help you do your job better? And how can we get that done together? That would, to me, be the best way.
And even some of the, like you mentioned earlier, I guarantee you walk by a couple law enforcement officers having their lunch break at a local restaurant. You walk by and say thank you, even if they're in their professional mode, and it matters. And tell me, when I'd have somebody walk by, Sheriff, thank you for what you and your people do. That mattered way more than you think. And in this day and age right now, it matters even more, because there's a lot of them out there that aren't feeling very appreciated, and that to hear that, it's a simple thing, it's a small gesture, it's kindness. It's basic kindness and giving instead of taking, and saying thanks for what you're doing.
I learned from Kimberly Miller that question, how are you doing? And I want to talk to the viewers and the listeners is just remember, when you're caring about your spouse, him or her, or your partner, you want to know how they're doing, right? And just ask a colleague of yours, how's your day? How's it going? And it does make a difference.
She's kind of smart.
She is. She's a good lady.
Yeah, she is. She talks funny. She's smart.
Yeah, but
and she knows I'd say that about her. If you want to see that, go back to episode 1. She gave some really great wisdom that I know will help your deputies and help your correctional officers. Some great words of wisdom, and that's why we all got to know her so well at NSA. Yeah, because she does have that wisdom, and again, our goal is to help you guys do your job. So. Well, I'm going to say those 3 letters. I told you to ask about it. FCC.
Yeah.
It's something that really very much can affect our sheriffs and our sheriff's offices and our jails. When I was a national board member, the FCC and the inmate calling services was a hot topic. It was something we really had to fend off, kind of the misunderstanding of what we do and how it's done. And I see that it's rearing its head again. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the FCC? Knowing we don't have a whole show, because we could go a couple hours on that, but what are your thoughts on the FCC? Where we're going, what's happening now, and for our sheriffs and jail administrators out there listening, and jail staff, what's coming?
Lauren told me this was vodka, so that's why I had to. If I have to talk about the FCC, I have to have a drink.
That's why our guests are always so happy.
Yeah, and this is water. It's not just the FCC. There's a strong push in Congress to pass legislation to seriously roll back the ability to make calls, video, phone, etc., and how it's charged. And what the impetus behind it is that, let's be honest, there were some bad actors in the industry that were charging outrageous fees, and we feel that industry has its moral obligation to do what's right. You guys have, you have insight, you have knowledge, you have technology, and you have a thriving business. Without those first three, you're not going to have the last one, right? So at some level, the government feels in Congress, many in Congress feel as though they know how to better to do this and to basically tell sheriffs at the local level, you will provide this service and you won't charge a penny for it. I'm overstating it somewhat,
right.
but it is that's the mentality. Look, there are no free lunches. There aren't. That cost of a phone to make a phone call has to come from somewhere. I'm sorry that your son or your daughter is in jail. That's a bad decision that they made in all likelihood. But we can't just live in a society where everything is free without some element of input from. The money's got to come from somewhere, right? So telling sheriffs, suck it up and get the money from your county commissioners. You're just pushing the rock down the hill to the furthest level of government. Somebody will have to pay for it, whether it's higher taxes, whether it's a markup on the top of a cell phone bill, as we do now for 911, as you know, Paul.
Right.
It's got to be paid for if you want these services. The legislation right now, and I can't remember when we're airing, but there's a move afoot to move legislation through the House in mid to late March, and then try and get legislation through the Senate. We have been working with Senator Duckworth in Illinois, great lady. And I think she's honest and committed to trying to find a solution. We think we can get there, but we're going to need the people watching this to help. Pick up that phone and call your senator, call your congressman, call your state association and say, we need to pay attention to this. You may be a state that isn't going to be affected. I find that hard to believe. Most everybody will be if this goes through. But find out who you have to talk to, when you have to talk to them. If you go to sheriffs.org, there's some talking points up there. There's a copy of the legislation. We have some really strong edits that make the bill not only better from the perspective of providing this service, but also paint a very clear set of lines in the road of what is expected of providers, what is expected of sheriffs and jails. And those are, as I said a moment ago, I said, everybody's got a portion of obligation and role in this. So that's what you need to do is I need people to go help us lobby, advance, and get something done that makes sense. Because otherwise the FCC is going to come in and they're just going to say a one-size-fits-all, and it's going to be a flat rate. That's it, and you're done. And I know a lot of sheriffs are going to say, I can't afford to do that.
Absolutely. And that was our fear before. But, I look at, for example, I use myself as an example. I'll just use my jail. I had a 350-bed facility, and I provided a lot of inmate services, and they were funded by that inmate commissary. They didn't come from the tax dollars. And I was able to bring in programs to better the inmates. I was able to bring in those Moms in Touch programs, Dads in Touch programs, those behavior-based programs. A lot of the things that would have cost a lot of money on the outside or would have cost taxpayers where I'd had to decide, well, I want to bring this in, so what's going to suffer over here? Well, I didn't have to do that because I could go to my taxpayers and say, this is what I need for you to help me run my sheriff's office. This is what I need to do to put deputies in the field, to do the things I need to do. And then all these programs, I'm working with the money we bring in from the sale of commissary in that case, or the sale of the phone time. And of course it has to be reasonable. It has to be reasonable. But I would put that right back into my inmate services. And to me, that's solving it all together. And that's them helping solve their issue, and investing back into them. If that all goes away, now it's on the taxpayer again. And so I will emphasize, as I look out here at the audience and say, he is talking to you. You might be that, I'm a sheriff of a 35-bed jail, and I got 12 deputies.
Those
We're
are the
talking
people
to you.
Yeah, we need those. We need those.
Pick up the phone, call your state association.
Yeah.
Guarantee you they'll be engaged in it, and let's make a difference, and let's do what's right and fair before we're chasing this one again.
Yeah, we were talking about this a little earlier too. Is that it's where should the money come from? Should it fall from the sky? That would be nice.
It'd be nice for all of us, but that doesn't happen.
It's not.
My tree, I talk to that money tree
I know,
in the backyard every day.
Mine died.
Mine don't grow at all.
Yeah.
Especially in this weather.
I don't know. We're having a bit of fun with this. This is pretty serious stuff.
But it's emphasizing, I think, a very serious thing we're trying to say is there's only so much money in the pie, and there's only so much budget you're going to get. So how can we offset those costs? Absolutely, everyone. Let's just put it right out there. Nobody should be gouged. Nobody should be paying unreasonable rates. We absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
And we do have a responsibility in the industry to police ourselves, because otherwise it gets policed for us. But at the end of the day, a lot of what happens out of this are good things that come out of this, and we don't want to lose that.
Yeah.
And we don't want this somebody up top who's not maybe doing all the research and understanding everything we do in the sheriff's world to start dictating decisions that they think they're doing a good thing, and they're actually hurting the very people they think they're helping.
That's what I'm afraid of. Is that it's those unknown, the consequences of, what do they say? The unintended consequences are the ones that'll kill you, and that's I fear that could very much. I think that this one could sneak up and have an enormously bad effect on many, many, many jails, and I hope for the listeners that they recognize something will happen. Right? Something's going to happen. So help us shape it and make it the best we possibly can, because otherwise, we've got both hands tied behind our back without you guys. You guys, you're the ones that policymakers listen to. All we do is we open the door and say, here are the facts. Listen to it from perspective of reality. We need you guys to do it.
Well, and I know this, you're going to stay on it. You will be involved in it, and reach out. Go to the sheriffs.org page and get more involved. And I can tell you from having been in those shoes, having been a sheriff, the information's there, but also the need for us to get involved is definitely there. And you'll keep letting them know what they need to do.
And I'll stop drinking the vodka now. This segment's over, right?
Yeah. We'll move on to the next question. Well, let's skip ahead a few months to the summer conference, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what we can expect to see this year?
Yeah, I can. It's time to meet. It's time. We've got to start realizing that, fortunately the vaccine is coming. June 22nd through the 24th in Phoenix. It's an exciting time for us. It will be the first major law enforcement organization meeting since COVID. God willing, we think we're going to be able to do it. Phoenix is still very favorable towards it. They think that they've set up some significant safety and health protocols. We have them in place. Social distancing. Obviously it's going to have a reduced footprint. We're going to have unfortunately we aren't going to be able to have as many exhibitors because of distance. One interesting thing we're thinking about having a COVID center for people to actually either be tested, right, or potentially or fingers crossed, possibly get a vaccine if we're far enough along in the country. And then there's obviously a whole lot of information on jails and how we need to treat jails and treat those in jails with the COVID. And then what's the future of the disease or the virus? How is it going to affect sheriffs and law enforcement in the months and years ahead? Because this isn't behind us forever. We know that, right?
Right.
Some of the content. I mean, there's going to be a whole lot of content on training in this new environment, meaning this new virtual environment, but also training in a hybrid environment. How can we do that more effectively and more efficiently? There's also going to be a lot of content on, and people are probably going to raise an eyebrow when we hear this, is human rights training. Not in the sense of international human rights failures, in the sense of human rights that we were talking about a moment ago, is that, in this country you have a right to liberty. You have a right to be a part of society. You don't have a right to steal. You don't have a right to harm people. And so looking at what are the human rights obligations of law enforcement, right?
Right.
But what are the human rights ramifications of bad law enforcement? Because I think we all know, let's be honest here. I mean, there are bad deputies.
Certainly. Every profession has. But I will say this. I think as a profession, we are the first to eat our own.
I agree with that.
As if we find that, we are going to deal with it. We are going to hold them accountable. Usually, how the media finds out about it is because we report it.
Yeah.
And we've already taken care of it. And in the days of that rogue person, that type of thing. I mean, I lived that industry for 30 years, and I know the men and women that are out there. Yes, do we have bad ones? You bet. And unfortunately, when one does one bad thing, we all pay the price.
Yeah.
Law enforcement. Tenfold over a lot of other professions, because there's bad doctors, there's bad lawyers, there's bad pilots, there's bad nurses, there's bad everything. People do bad things, and we need. You said this before, and it really resonated with me when you quoted Vince Lombardi when you said we go for perfection. Or we strive for perfection so we can reach excellence.
Yep.
And I think that really sums up the law enforcement community, what we're trying to do.
I think it does. I mean, I think because you have such you have a huge responsibility. I mean, it's the most regulated industry, perhaps, in the world. You've got Supreme Court rulings, district court rulings, you've got state court rulings, you've got state laws, you've got local laws, you've got federal laws. I mean, talk about regulation, right? Yep. But that's okay because you have a special authority. Once you put that star on it, you have the authority to constrain or detain somebody and take their liberty away from them. That's an immense amount of power. Right. And so you should be held accountable. You should be held to a higher standard. No two ways about it.
Absolutely.
But there shouldn't be a double standard here.
Right.
Let's be honest about that. And so I think I'm sure I might get some email on this, but I think where we see the training and the show going is that we want to make certain that we're looking at ourselves, that you all are looking at yourselves as industry, asking, are we doing it the right way? Maybe we're not adjusting. Maybe we should. Maybe we don't need to adjust.
And I don't think that's unfair to ask ourselves. I always say before you can change anyone else, you need to change yourself.
Right.
And that's as a person. That's basic advice. We would all agree with that. And I think as an industry, there's nothing wrong with saying to ourselves, let's look in and make sure we are achieving that excellence. And if we're not, then let's fix what it is, because we have that responsibility as well. But I also know the hundreds of thousands of good, solid cops out there that are getting it done every day.
Yep.
And let's make sure that they have the tools, the respect, and the ability to get it done, and aren't punished because of the few. And we need to be strong and get it done.
And I would say, Paul, I'm the first one that needs people pointed out, hey, you need to do it this way. Least perfect amongst us I'm looking in the mirror, and maybe I'm not doing it right, or maybe we're not doing it right. So I have to start with myself and ourself. Right. So I think there's a unique opportunity for law enforcement, and in particular sheriffs, because they are elected.
Absolutely.
They have a lot of impact. Cops have a special authority. Sheriffs have a super special authority. Mm-hmm. Right. You have been entrusted with my vote.
Right.
And
we picked you to be that person.
Right.
Greatest honor ever. Hugest and big responsibility.
We don't elect our generals.
That's right.
We don't elect our nurses and our doctors to serve us.
Well, one of the first things they did when they came to the New World was elect their sheriff and elect their chief protector, and we can't forget that. And we have to we have to be responsible for making sure we always uphold that. Well, I do know one thing. I know you're going to be at the summer conference.
I will be.
I know we're going to be at the summer conference, and we all hope you are at the summer conference. Come out and support the National Sheriff's Association, and come out and support the Sheriffs of America. And let's have a great first time together through COVID. We'll do it right. We'll do it responsibly.
It's time.
But it's time for us to come together and get some things done. So with that, I know we're coming to the end of our time frame, and I just want to give you the platform and just what's some of the last words of wisdom that you have for our sheriffs, for our jail administrators, for our listeners.
Take care of one another, number one. Number two, remember that sometimes during the darkest days, the old cliche is that it will get light soon. It may not. And we may have some more dark days ahead of us. And I think that tells me that as an association, we're going to be asking more of people. And the membership is going to be expecting more. So we have to pay attention to that. I guess I'd leave everybody with the last word is that for 6 years, you have blessed me to work with you all, work for you, to be your voice. I haven't always done it great. Sometimes I don't do it as well as I could. But I do know that you all have had my back, and I will never give up believing in what to do. I will never stop. Never stop.
That is a very true statement. Very true statement. Well, Jonathan, on behalf of both Lauren and I, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom. I know you got a chance to meet with some of our people and share your experience.
What a great organization.
We're very proud of who we have here and what we do, and we're very proud of just everybody in this building and what we do. And we're proud of the fact that our owner gives us the opportunity to do this. I love my sheriffs. And it's a passion that even, once you retire, you never leave that world.
Yeah.
And to be able to come back and give back, and Lauren and I, we talk about, we got, like I said, the old dog and the young new person who's going to have that impact on society. We get to do this together, and we get to do that for the profession that I love so much. And we aren't going to quit either. We're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep bringing you some great information, some great knowledge, and we're going to keep at it ourselves. So thank you on behalf of all of us.
God bless, my friend.
God bless you too.
Thank you. Lauren?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
If anybody has any questions, comments, or wants to be featured on the show, email us at jailtalk@gmail.com. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at JailTalk Podcast. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch and listen to all of our podcasts on jailtalk.podbean.com.
I'm Paul Laney.
And I'm Lauren Matthews.
And we'll see you next time.